All right, welcome back to our second part of our briefings this afternoon. We are really lucky to be joined by two out-of-state experts to give us some of their experiences. We will start with the Public Utility Commission of Texas. Commissioner Haltman is very kind to zoom in and talk to her friends in Maryland. Commissioner, the floor is yours, and thanks so much for doing this.
Hi, thank you so much. Good afternoon, Chairman Corbin, Vice Chair Gaiton, and esteemed delegates. I'm sorry if I butchered anyone's name with a last name like Yaltman. I understand, but I am trying. My name is Courtney Yaltman, and I'm a commissioner at the Texas Public Utility Commission of Texas. I'm proud to represent my agency here before you today and my state, and I thank you for the opportunity to discuss some of the important things we've been doing in Texas and the role of the Texas Public Utility Commission. I will start referring to the Public Utility Commission as the PUC, just as an FYI. I will give you a note of when I started in this industry, the acronyms absolutely terrified me. And I will tell you what someone told me at the time, you will start to learn them very quickly. And it's true. Now, if you ask me what an acronym stands for, I couldn't tell you. I just know the acronyms. So you will get there. Just give it time and you'll be like me in no time. The Texas PUC has three primary missions. We protect consumers, we foster competition, and we promote high quality infrastructure. And we do that by exercising regulatory authority over the electric utility and the telecommunications industry. And then we also regulate the economic aspects of water and wastewater. Today, I'm just going to focus on the electric utility side, as I believe that's where your interest lies. The PUC oversees more than 299 electric service providers. That's made up of 128 retail electric providers, that's REPs, 72 municipally owned utilities, we call those MOUs, 76 electric cooperatives, and 13 investor-owned utilities. For context, roughly 90% of Texans are served by ERCOT. That's the Electric Reliability Council of Texas. ERCOT functions as an independent system operator, an ISO, ensuring that 25 million consumers and customers within the region receive reliable electric services. And I see you have the slides. The slides are just kind of informational, an appendix, if you will, to go back and look at. They're not necessarily flowing along with my discussion points, but it's so you could get a good picture of kind of what's going on in Texas and understand how ERCOT's made up of and other items like that. So 90% of Texas is in ERCOT. Texas also being Texas, we have a little bit of Texas in the MISO region. We have a little bit of Texas in SPP, and then we have another, the eastern or the western of El Paso is in the Western Electric Coordinating Council, WEC. So as you can imagine, that adds a wonderful complexity to our policymaking as we have pretty much a little bit of everything in Texas. I want to focus primarily on ERCOT, as that is where most of Texas does incorporate and encompass, and so that's what I'll speak towards today. Because ERCOT is entirely within the bounds of Texas and within the boundaries, we do not participate in interstate commerce, and therefore we largely fall outside of the FERC jurisdiction, which helps Texas be able to move quickly and do what we want with our market. ERCOT is a deregulated market, meaning our transmission operators are completely separate from the generation and retail providers. This deregulation happened in 1999 with the passage of Senate Bill 7, and it actually became effective in 2002. With the deregulation, we ended vertical monopolies within the ERCOT region. Deregulation does not apply to electric cooperatives and then some municipalities that are in the ERCOT region. Texas is very proud of the fact that we are an energy-only market. So rather than paying for generation to be available, we only pay for energy that is actually produced in real time. Within ERCOT, the commission is the rate regulator. We do not build generation. We do not tell generation where to build. Instead, we allow the market to drive those investments and decisions. This feature of the ERCOT system requires us to carefully consider different tools to provide the right signals of investments. Some of those would be healthy day ahead and real-time prices to justify new builds, complementary submarkets like ancillary services and reliability services, and then rules that encourage load growth, signaling long-term returns on investments. I will dive deeper into some of these tools later, but I just want to say that a common phrase here in Texas is that we are pro-business, and to be pro-business, our perspective is that the best thing to do is to not overregulate. Overregulation can lead to unintended consequences, discourage new market participation or innovation, or prioritize short-term market gains over long-term affordability for the safety of consumers. Like many other states and RTOs, Texas is facing a real challenge from retiring generation and substantial load growth driven primarily by large loads. I want to highlight some of the recent work we have accomplished and that we're still implementing here at the Commission to ensure Texans have access to reliable and affordable energy. In the next 5 years, the peak summer load of ERCOT is expected to rise to more than 138,000 megawatts. This is growth driven primarily by large load. The Texas legislature provided the Commission with substantial authority and direction to address this growth. This past session, the legislature adopted Senate Bill 6, which was a critical bill for Texas in many ways. One important part of the bill authorized the Commission and ERCOT to study net metering arrangements between the large loads and existing generation. Net metering is the arrangement between load and generator to serve some portion of load first before participating in the wholesale market. Senate Bill 6 also requires net metering arrangement with existing dispatchable generators to guarantee that there is no decrease in available capacity during emergency situations. The goal of Texas' new authority to condition net metering arrangements is to ensure Texans have the economic growth that we want, but we do not put existing residents at risk by losing critical megawatts from the firm grid. One possible side effect of adding these conditions will likely be to encourage large loads to bring batteries for backup generation or work with entirely new generation resources, or they might just choose to completely island themselves. Senate Bill 6 also directs the Commission to develop a large load demand management service. We anticipate proposing those rules for stakeholders sometime this spring. This service will focus on participation by large loads as a tool to enhance reliability of the Texas grid. Another item the Commission is currently working on is DRRS, that is Dispatchable Reliability Reserve Service. DRRS is meant to be an additional tool to ensure grid reliability and provides a new submarket to incentivize dispatchable generation. One thing that might surprise you, as most of my discussion thus far has been on dispatchable generation, is that Texas is actually the #1 state for renewable energy in the country. Texas, for many years, had a statutory goal of 10,000 megawatts of installed renewable capacity by 2025. And we actually surpassed that goal alone with wind energy in 2011. We have roughly 40,000 megawatts operational capacity of wind energy on the grid today, and we have nearly 37,000 megawatts operation capacity of solar. This overwhelming prevalence of renewable energy interconnecting on the grid has actually caused a change in how ERCOT operates our grid at the highest risk hours. That now has shifted. Typically, we see demand peak during the afternoon hours here in Texas when everyone is running their air conditioner. But as you can imagine, the demand on the grid after a streak of 110 days increases over and over by the end of the day. This time used to reflect when operating reserves were at the lowest. But now that we have so much solar power flowing into the market, which is great and cheap, the peak demand has not necessarily correlated with tight conditions. We are now seeing those risk hours shift from the hottest part of the day in the summer to ramping hours when solar and wind are at their lowest. For Texas, that means the evenings in the summer when the sun is set and the wind has not been starting to blow yet, or it can mean in the winter when we actually see riskier conditions in the morning when people are just getting up and start moving and the sun has not risen. We also see increased risk when wind unexpectedly isn't blowing or there is a significant cloud coverage limiting solar generation. So Texas in the last couple of years has realized a strong need to support dispatchable generation and dispatchable energy to firm up the grid with the ability to serve all hours. The Texas legislature proposed a constitutional amendment, which the state overwhelmingly adopted to make a historic $10 billion investment in generation. The Commission now manages the Texas Energy Fund, which offers 4 unique loan and grant programs for dispatchable energy providers in ERCOT. There's the reliability projects outside of ERCOT and backup generation for critical facilities. The shift in risk hours has also contributed to the breakthrough in the production of utility scale batteries in the state. In ERCOT, we have roughly a little over 16,000 megawatts of batteries currently, and we are anticipating to nearly double that amount by May of 2027. All of these programs and growth reflect a healthy and competitive wholesale market that leaves space for innovation, but it takes careful, intentional planning to make that happen. Additionally, we are looking to improve the grid we already have. Texas has made historic investments and recently approved 765 kV transmission lines to be developed within ERCOT across the western part of the state. Existing loads in the West Texas area for oil and gas and increased electrification of oil and gas industry have needed this increased capacity for a while. But we also saw benefits to this regional plan for the whole state. We are also exploring ways to improve our energy efficiency programs across the state. We have had a rule in place for years to promote energy efficiency programs through transmission and distributing providers, working with retail providers in their service area. Our staff are now developing a rule that will encourage innovation and improve existing programs while ensuring customers are paying for real benefits to the system. There are many other things going on at our commission right now in regards to various studies, in regards to reliability, cost allocation of ancillary service, and even cost allocation of transmission. All items that we expect as commissioners to be mindful of as the changes really impact those consumers back home. So to conclude my presentation, Texas is engaged on all fronts to ensure electricity is reliable and affordable while keeping our state open for business. With that, I thank you. I'm here to answer questions, and I wish you good luck on the new industry you're delving into.
Commissioner, thank you so much. It's really very kind of you to spend some time with another state. We do have some questions. We'll start with Delegate Long.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Commissioner, thank you so much for being with us from the great state of Texas all the way here to Maryland. And I am curious because we're trying to drink from a fire hose here as we digest this information, so I appreciate you again. But from your perspective, what is the role of retail energy suppliers in residential demand responses, and what value can these suppliers provide to customers when they are allowed to offer innovative products?
So here in Texas, obviously, a lot of the products like the energy efficiency do go through the reps, the retail energy providers. And right now, they can formulate their own. We have pilot programs that are being initiated by some of our retail electric providers to push through. They're a little bit in their infancy just because it is all very different. We have so many reps that they can do what they want. So they're trying to find the way to make the most bang for their buck, right? When I previously to being a commissioner, I was our public consumer advocate. So I had the hat of really looking at how to help costs be more efficient for the consumer. And from that standpoint, we wanted to make sure that the programs that reps were providing were going to those people that needed them the most, that would see the benefit of obtaining, a help on their bill daily and that efficiency. It would not only be efficient for the grid, the number would go down, but the bill would go down too as an efficiency. So there's kind of a 2-point. So they do all have their own. They coordinate programs with their transmission providers. The reps are not the transmission providers here. Those are separate since we are not vertically integrated. And they work to, obviously, in the hottest parts of the day or the coldest parts of the day, they will go and lower the thermostats of these programs and try to really work to help the grid not only be more efficient so that we have the capacity, but also help lower those bills. So we see it as a kind of a 2-part equation, if you will.
Thank you. Just real quick, my last follow-up, Mr. Chair, if I may. And I may have missed this in the slide. This may sound like a very elementary question, but just so I'm clear, Texas is a regulated state. And exactly how many plants do you all have per se in the state?
So Texas is actually, we're deregulated. So as far as generation, it's not owned by anyone in Texas, right? They are owned by companies. We don't tell them where to pick. As far as a number of generators, that is a good question. I don't even know if we have a count. I know we have 2 nuclear plants. Looking at staff, do we have a number of generators? It's in the slides. Let's see. 1,250 generation units.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you.
Of course. Yes. Good luck.
Delegate Lewis.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you so much, Courtney. Forgive me, your last name is pronounced Haltman?
So I tell everybody we say y'all in Texas, so it's
So
like
it's
saying y'all
Yaltman.
with a T, y'all.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Yaltman, for your presentation. I've always admired Texas and its forward-thinking, sort of revolutionary early adoption of wind energy. And I remember in 2011 when you guys were designated, it's really impressive. And it's encouraging to see how much you guys have done with regard to energy production and management since then. I'm still learning. I'm no expert. I don't know all the acronyms that you know yet. But there's one question I had. I hope you can answer. We all remember the terrible blizzard in 2021 that hit Texas. Very abnormal, very historically just, extreme weather event. And one, once in a generation event. I'm curious what lessons you guys have learned about managing energy demand during such unexpected events, because we do expect in the next 50 years to have more unexpected events. How have you adapted your grid, the management, and what could we learn from you as we prepare? Thank you.
That's an excellent question. And I will say, both a positive and a negative, we learned a lot because we saw some things that we needed to do much better. We saw some items that we maybe had allowed to the industry to drive and they weren't getting it done. So we did need to have some legislation to push it. I would say the most impactful thing that we see every time, not just necessarily on a winter storm at the PUC, but at anything going across the state, is communication between agencies. Here in Texas, we have the PUC, which is in charge of the grid, but we have the Railroad Commission, which is in charge of oil and gas. And communication between those two industries is really vital. And prior to Uri, it wasn't necessarily happening at the best and beneficial way. So we created a TERC, the Texas Energy not Texas Energy, but it's kind of basically an emergency council where so many different agencies are all on the phone talking and saying, here's what I see, what do you need? Let's communicate at the top level to make sure we don't have any issues. That can be the Transportation Committee, the Commission, environmental quality, any environmental groups that have to provide waivers if you have to go over on something. It has the Railroad Commission here. It has our Department of Emergency Services. So the agency that's actually in charge of all emergencies, they're on those calls too. So it really helped to streamline by having all those different agency heads in one room, and they're not necessarily in the room, they're all on one call, communicating constantly. So that is one thing that's definitely beneficial, and I advise everyone to have something of that effect. Another item was weatherization standards. At the time, there was no weatherization standards on any of these generators, and they just fell to the elements. They were not ready for that sub-zero temperature. We are made to take the heat here in Texas, so they're out in the elements where they can cool easily in the heat. But for cold, that's not how you should be built. You should be built with a structure over you. So we really had to weatherize, and we went through and implemented some weatherization standards, and those have really paid off exponentially. In the last winter storm we just had here with Winter Storm Fern, they all withstood the negative temperatures that the wind chill increased. There was no question. And it's been great efforts. It's not just cold weather we get here in Texas. I always tell people, only in Texas, where the territory is so vast, can you be on a call where you have a blizzard in the Panhandle, you're seeing fires out in West Texas, you have a drought in South Texas, and you have flooding in the East. And you have literally every imaginable scenario going on. And that's because Texas is so vast and the weather is so different across it. And we have to be prepared for everything. So we have had resiliency plans. We obviously have a lot of hurricanes that come through. And that probably was the driver behind a lot of this, but it really goes to all the regions and all the transmission lines. They put forth resiliency efforts where they say, we have poles that need to be replaced. We see that we need more vegetation management. We need to be really proactive as the weather is changing more and more every year. And you'll actually benefit by paying a little more early, because if we do these things, we will not have as many outages. And we're starting to see the benefits of those. So we've learned that. I would say, I'm not sure, I think we've learned a lot more than that, but those are kind of the few that come to mind and jump to mind right now.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Delegate Fraser Hidalgo.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Commissioner Yachtman, thank you so much for being here. It's wonderful to have you. So I have a question for you. Looking at some of your charts, I see your storage capacity like, I don't know, doubling and tripling over the last few years. Could you talk about the choices that were made? The growth in your capacity in your storage is just kind of mind-boggling when you think about what's going on around the rest of the country.
Yeah, it's definitely picked up on its own. And I will say, you know, like I said, we are an energy-only market. We try to do things that will drive and incentivize the batteries or the solar or the wind and the gas to build on their own. I think a natural item that was there for batteries is we have so much wind and solar. And so if you have all that wind and solar, they know that someone needs to store that capacity. You know, the energy market, unlike any other market, until batteries, we had no way to store anything. And so wind and solar don't shine all the time. They don't blow all the time. So the batteries can be there as a counterpart. And we've really seen them kind of pairing up together. If you're going to put a wind plant or solar farm in an area, a battery will kind of now come along and be like, let's team up. I can be your firming part of that generation. So part of that has just been what was already in the market. And then we have done some market things to really help drive batteries. You know, we have programs where, and our ancillary services where you have to be able to be turned on. And so being able to flip a switch, and a battery in that definition would be able to turn on and flip a switch. So they see some of the incentive of, if we build, they will need us. We know they'll need us. And so they've taken that incentive and built themselves.
And from a demand response perspective, I'm assuming it's a big advantage in Texas to just be able to grab those electrons off of those batteries pretty instantly.
100%. Yes, they've taken over some of our ancillary services, to be honest. You know, they are the people that are able to bid in and see the benefit the greatest, because they can charge really low. And so they can bid in at a lower level in front of some of the others, and they get that benefit.
Thank you. Thank you.
Of course.
Okay. Commissioner, thank you again. I don't see any further questions for you, so appreciate you being with us. As we transition to California, let me also thank the chair of the subcommittee, Chair Fraser Hidalgo, for coming up with this idea and helping us get our speakers, with Steve's help, of course. We will now transition to the chair of the California Energy Commission, who will pop up on the screen here.
Yeah, can you see me there?
Yeah. We can, Mr. Chair. Please take it away, and thanks for joining us.
All right. Well, good afternoon. I come to you, unfortunately, with the last name that is even more difficult to spell than Courtney's. I'm David Hochschild. I'm chair of the California Energy Commission. And I was just recalling my time in Maryland. I got my EMT license in Montgomery County, I think when I was 20. So that's my early days in Maryland. I am chair of the California Energy Commission. We're California's primary energy policy and planning agency. I've had the opportunity to work with Representative Fraser Hidalgo on some issues, and I'm pleased to just provide an overview of what's happening in our clean energy space. And I think there are some slides. Can we pull those up so I can see them? Or is there someone on your end who can run the slides?
Just let us know when you want to change the slide, and we'll do that for you.
Okay, I can't see the slides. Is there a way, or is there a way, sorry, this a little bit of, I wasn't aware I wouldn't be able to see the deck.
If it's your browser or what, but they're working on it.
Okay, well, I can wing it a little bit, or somebody can tell me what slide I'm on. I'll just maybe open with a little bit of, actually, so what?
Currently, we just have your name and a lovely picture of some windmills.
A lovely picture of someone else, okay.
Okay,
Well, I'm told I have
got
a
lovely
great
picture.
face for radio, so well, maybe while they're just working, I can just launch and we can pick up as the slides become visible. I just, unfortunately, I'm not able to see the picture. So I think the big picture in California, and really what's happening, I think, around the country and the world, is that electricity is ascendant as a source of energy, and the future of electricity of energy is going to flow more through wires than through pipes. So it really matters a lot what the content of that energy generation is on the grid. And so in California, we're about 70% clean energy on the grid today. And really, alternative energy is the wrong word to use to describe renewables in California. We've been adding a colossal amount of solar, wind, and battery storage. And we have altogether about 105 gigawatts of capacity that have been built on the utility side of the meter. And about 30 of that has come on just since Gavin Newsom became governor. So it's been a huge deployment of new resources. As you recall, we had an outage in 2020 due to extreme heat from climate change. And our mantra at that time, that outage affected about 500,000 people over 3.5 hours, August 14th and 15th of 2020, and our mantra is never again. So we've added a colossal amount of new capacity, and about half of that 30 gigs is energy storage. So that's been a huge success for us. And we've had, summer before last, we had the highest temperatures and the highest load in the history of the state, and we've had no outages and no flex alerts, which is the signal we send when we get close. And really, in large part, it's due to that, the energy storage capacity. We've also stood up the largest virtual power plant in the world. I don't see the slide, so I can just wing it for a few minutes and then take questions unless there's someone tells me otherwise. Should I just keep going?
So, yeah, the slide we're seeing is California is on track to achieve 100% clean electricity.
Yeah. Yes, we are. Maybe someone can narrate what slide we're on. So, yeah, the current law requires us to get to 90% clean energy by 2035, and we're absolutely on a path to hit that, and then 100% by 2045. So, next slide. If someone can just read it to me, what slide we're on.
96% of new U.S. grid capacity.
Oh, yeah. So, actually, the majority of new capacity added to the grid in 2024 was clean energy, and next slide, the majority of what's been retired is fossil. So the grid is getting cleaner. That's primarily because we've had huge success in driving down the cost of clean energy sources like solar. I was actually in the solar industry in Silicon Valley before I started in this role. I got into it in 2000. Solar was $5 a watt. There are projects going in at 20 cents a watt now, and we're not done with cost reduction. And the same trajectory is happening, for energy storage and for wind. Okay, next slide.
And our chief zoomologist tells me if you switch to gallery view, you'll be able to see your slides.
Gallery view. Okay. I'm so sorry. I don't know that I can. Okay. I am not. Oh, I see. If I do. Yeah, it's not showing up for me. I apologize. So, yeah, it's not. I'm not. I'm just seeing you and two of the blank screens.
Okay, well, I'm sorry you have to see me. Since 2023, renewables exceed coal on U.S. grid.
Yeah, so obviously we've been displacing. Coal used to be about half of our generation. It's now down to 16% and falling. Next slide.
Chinese proverb.
Yeah, so that is one of my favorite proverbs. The people say it can't be done. You should get out of the way of the people who are doing it. And it's just, we can click through these next slides quickly. Just the largest solar thin film PV project, geothermal, and yeah, I'm in gallery view and it's not showing. So, we're sorry, this really feels like
We're on
fun.
exactly what you said, the world's largest geothermal
Okay.
power plant.
Yeah, so that's a 24/7 resource. I will say, diversity among resources is really important too. Right now, solar is, winning on cost, but we're supporting a whole range of clean sources. We have, wind power. We are looking at offshore wind. We are obviously doing a lot of geothermal. And some biomass, and then a lot of battery storage. Next slide.
On to wind.
Yeah, so our wind project used to be the largest in the world. It's now the third biggest, and it's in Kern County, a big oil producing county, but it's now I think it's the second biggest taxpayer in Kern County. And we're installing just, the size of the turbines going in right now is incredible. We were, used to only have like 1 megawatt turbines. We're now doing the largest turbines ever installed are now being put in this month. They're finishing that, almost 6 megawatt turbines, and that's helping drive the cost down. All right, next slide.
Rooftop solar.
Yeah, and so we have required solar on all new construction, and that is true for homes. We build about 110 to 120,000 new homes a year in California, as well as all commercial buildings and schools. We're getting about roughly a gigawatt of new rooftop solar as a result of those codes, along with some really strict requirements on, double pane windows and LED lights and so on. Next slide.
Battery storage.
Yeah, so as I mentioned, battery storage has been a really key strategy. We're also investing a lot in the R&D to drive the cost down, increase energy density. But generally, the trend with battery storage is we're seeing about a 3% improvement every year on energy density. And that's helping with cost reduction. And there's a nice thing with lithium too, where you have all of these other industries, electric vehicles, laptops, cell phones, so many other electric devices. I just got an electric chainsaw. I had no idea those even existed. Works great. And I use that in my yard work now. So many other industries pulling all together, putting money into R&D. So that's been a big focus for us. We just started a battery hub to help continue to drive down costs and increase energy density. Okay, next slide.
Global renewables.
Yeah, so we're just seeing, across the globe, renewables are now growing at a faster rate. I think it's really important to note than their predecessor industries. Solar, wind, battery storage are scaling, and I think one thing I'd point out is just how simple these technologies are to manufacture and to scale, and to install. So, we're installing right now the largest battery project in the world. Darden, it's about a $5.5 billion project, and that is being installed, over a 12 to 18 month cycle. To do a new gas turbine in the United States is 7 years, right? And so I think that's been one of the attractive features of these technologies, that they're relatively simple and quick to install. Okay, next slide.
It's about clean energy costs plunging.
Yeah, let's go ahead. The next slide.
New record, California hits energy storage.
Yeah, 17 gigs we hit. Next slide.
It's the administration's energy progress. Clean capacity added since 2019.
Yeah, I mentioned that 30 gigs. And by the way, I just want to say, as a native California, I think there's a very fair critique of our state. It is hard to build things here. I read that book, Abundance, and I really welcomed that. I thought it was a really welcome kick in the pants to democratic governance. And I think there's a bunch of fair critiques in there. That's not the case for building out clean energy. The clean energy capacity build out in California has been, phenomenal in my view. And 30 gigs is just a colossal amount to bring on the last 7 years. So really proud of that. We got a lot more to build because load is growing. I should just say a little bit about that. We're adding about 1,200 electric vehicles a day in California. It's about a quarter of our vehicle sales now. And new construction, a decade ago, only 1% was being all electric. And now it's over 80%. So these things are driving load up. Of course, higher temps from climate change is also resulting in increased AC load, and of course we have AI. So we need to continue to build at a really healthy clip, and that was one of the reasons the legislature did a new fast track permitting law to accelerate that. And this large scale battery project I mentioned is one of those fast track project. Next slide.
100% clean energy on 9 out of 10 days.
Yeah, so this is kind of an incredible milestone. Our state has never happened before, but just as a result of all the storage that I mentioned, we were getting clean energy on 9 out of 10 days for a period of the day. So like last July was, about 6 hours out of the day. That has never happened before. So I just think, the problem we're trying to solve for is getting smaller and, again, hugely enabled by energy storage. Next slide.
Zero emission vehicle mandate.
Yeah, so in the middle of our wildfires, the worst fires we've ever had as a state, 2019, 2020, the governor adopted this executive order to move us to 100% zero emission vehicle sales by 2035. And a big part of the focus of that was building out the charging infrastructure, which is what my agency does. We have about an $8 billion budget, and we have been putting, really the single biggest thing we're funding is chargers to support that. So we actually have more EV charge plugs in California than we have gasoline nozzles today, and that's what really helped enable a lot of growth. Okay, next slide.
ZEV sales.
Yeah. If it's okay, I think I'd like to stop. It's really hard for me to not see. I think it may be easier if I could just share a few more things verbally and then
Absolutely.
open up to
That's
questions.
great.
Yeah, sorry, this is the first time I've ever presented blind, but I'll just share, a couple highlights. The ZEV penetration, it's been really inspiring to see all the different ways that's happening. So we have a project in Oakland, California, first major city in the United States to fully electrify their school bus fleet. So 74 buses, 74 chargers. It's also the largest vehicle to grid project in the world. Those buses go out, do the route, drop the kids off, come back, and they're plugged in by 4 o'clock. And they're feeding power back into the grid and getting compensated for that. Those buses are made in California, and we got a huge program to roll out, school bus electrification. That is a children's health issue. There's science about the fumes from conventional diesel buses getting into the cab and affecting student health. So we're really, really excited about that. We're also seeing heavy duty vehicles take off now. FedEx is going to 100% electric by 2030. We have a really, really compelling value proposition now for the electric truck chassis for class 4, 5, and 6. I'm going to be doing a visit to the Tesla semi-truck factory in Nevada in a month, and we have about 100 of those electric semis operating. So these, the Pepsi facility out of Modesto uses those fully loaded. They're going 540 miles on a single charge, which is incredible. This is stuff that was considered a pipe dream. And I'll just share one story. And that one of the drivers, when I toured that site, had been driving a semi truck his whole career for 30 years, and the last year was his first time driving all electric. And he said he's absolutely convinced it's good for his health. The reduction in vibration and pollution and noise, he experiences less fatigue at the end of his shift. And it was just a nice reminder that a lot of what we're doing for clean air and climate is really good for health as well. And so, anyways, that's been a major focus for us. We're also doing a lot around manufacturing to support small scale. So we have, electric construction equipment. We have electric tractor manufacturing and a whole bunch of other, corollary technologies. So maybe let me just wrap up there and just I would just share like we have that saying. Good judgment comes from experience, and experience comes from bad judgment. I think that is true of California. We have made a lot of mistakes along the way, but I think one of the things we've figured out is that the energy transition is good for our economy. We got a lot of criticism when we started down this path that this is going to devastate our economy. And really, 15 years ago was when we adopted the 33% RPS. That's now been raised to 100%. And so we heard that critique from all over. And what has happened is since that time, California has gone from the 10th largest economy. We passed Russia and Italy and Brazil and France and the UK and now Japan. Now we're the 4th largest economy in the world. And we've become a destination state for clean tech investment. It's unquestionably helped drive our economy. And we have 6 of the 10 most valuable companies in the world are California companies. And I would say it's very popular with people. People want to see clean technology. They care about environment. They care about clean air. And so, we have a governor and a legislature that, is passionate about this. And long term, I think there's a recognition as you transition to energy sources that don't have a fuel, we're insulating ourselves from the volatility in the fossil fuel markets. And that is good for affordability long term. So I think I'll maybe close on that point and just share also that, in terms of lessons learned, I think maybe the biggest lesson for us of all is that, you want to move toward a model of what I call sustained orderly development, where you have long-term policies in place that provide stability. I think early on, one of our big mistakes, we'd come out with a solar program and we'd fund it for a year and then it'd run out of money and it would collapse. And you can't build industries and you can't get to the real things that drive costs down, which is innovation, automation, and scale. And those things happen when you have stability. So really all of our policies, our cap and trade program, our clean energy mandates, our ZEV goals, all these things are now long-term locked in. And there's, these stage gates every few years that we have predictability, and that's helped a lot. So with that, thank you. It's been an honor to present to you, and I'm happy to answer questions.
Great. Thank you so much. It's really kind of you to spend time with another state. And although I'm a native Marylander, I did go to college in California, so it's exciting to see the progress there. When you talk about those clean energy days, we had 6 hours on that day in July. What is included in that? Is that just wind, solar, and storage?
No, that's
or
anything
is
that's
that
carbon free. So we built 5 nuclear plants. We've decommissioned 4 of them, but we have 1 remaining, Diablo Canyon. And when we say carbon free, we're including nuclear. We are also including large hydro. So anything that's renewable or carbon free.
Awesome. Delegate Fraser-Dowg has a question.
Really appreciate it. A couple of questions. You talked about storage, and I want to ask a similar question that I asked to the commissioner from Texas. What lessons learned, what pitfalls do you think lessons you learned that you would communicate to us, so maybe we don't make those same mistakes when we're talking about the conversion and pairing of solar and storage together? Because it seems like that is something that you have very much in common with Texas, and it's interesting to see how that has accelerated so quickly. And again, what did you learn that we don't have to learn the hard way? How did you get there
for
so
one
quickly?
thing, I think you're really lucky now if you're starting on a path to do more energy storage. The technology is so much better. It's so much cheaper. It's so much more reliable. And we had little kinks, like sometimes the dispatch, we would be dispatching storage when we should be charging it. And there were little kinks about how the grid operator, actually worked with the system. That's all gotten worked out. I think the other big issue is safety, fire safety. So the first generation of this technology was called NMC chemistry, and that operated at a higher temperature, and they did not have, the early generation did not have good coats. So there were some battery fires. And unfortunately, like one of our fires that we had, it was under this previous code, which allowed for indoor configurations with stacked units with NMC chemistry and no telemetry. And that has totally changed. So the industry's moved from NMC chemistry to LFP. And, I feel very good about the safety of the new technology. Everything we're doing is now outside in an enclosed metal shipping container with spacing between the units and telemetry. In case there ever is a fire, you can immediately detect it and turn it off. And so the new things are going in just where I feel very good about safety. And my my commitment to the public in California is I will never vote for a battery project that I wouldn't be comfortable being in my neighborhood. Okay, I think that needs to be the standard. And in fact, I have 2 battery systems on my home, 2 Tesla Powerwalls. They work great. I've had them for 5 years now. And so we're seeing quite a lot of that. By the way, we have about 2,000 behind the meter home owned battery systems we're adding a week in California. We're making use of those through a big virtual power plant. It's about a 1.2 gigawatt virtual power plant that we operate, which is also helping. But overall, I think safety and then siting. But I think the trend is really co-location of storage with many other things, not just renewable generation, but we're also seeing this with fast charging. So, one of the largest charger companies in the world, Electrify America, is now co-locating energy storage with the fast chargers. That saves a lot of money and time because they don't have to do a distribution system upgrader to make it work. And the fast charging that's going in now is getting really, really fast. It's 350, 450, 500 kW chargers that can recharge a car in 10 to 15 minutes. And that requires a lot of power, so the energy storage really helps make that possible without having to do a distribution system upgrade. Is that helpful?
Yeah, it is. And last question, if I may, Mr. Chair. How are you dealing with, because a lot in the PJM, we're dealing with a lot of data center issues, bringing your own power, capacity markets, just a lot of turmoil on how we pay for things and big spikes in the markets for ratepayers, like massive spikes in the markets for ratepayers. How are you dealing with data centers, and do you do capacity markets out there, or how is that working? How are you dealing with those things?
Great question. I mean, I think the goal is we support data centers being built in the state, but not at any price, and definitely not in any way that's going to harm ratepayers. And so it's a delicate line to walk. Right now, I mean, there's more data center construction happening in places like Texas and Oklahoma. We definitely are, home to Silicon Valley, and so we're doing a bunch here as well. I think one of the things you're seeing in the industry from players like Google is a desire to control their own fate more. And so, Google just the project I just mentioned, Darden, which is the world's largest battery project, which that's a wholesale project for the grid. That company that is building Darden, Intersect, was just acquired by Google, or a big fraction of that company, to do their own data centers. These companies are building out their own capacity on solar and storage that can provide their own generation. But I think the way we see it is we would like to support construction of those, but it really has to be good for ratepayers. We're very mindful. What's happened with rates, just for context, and you guys may be dealing with some of the same challenges, but our rates were very flat for 20 years, up until the wildfires hit, like 2019, 2020. And then it's just been a huge, steep climb because we've had so much utility undergrounding, vegetation management. And so there's a big focus on controlling rate impacts. So that's how we see data centers as really guarding against that.
Thank you.
Delegate Stein.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and Chair Hochschild. Thanks for your presentation and for the amazing work that California has been doing in leading the way in development of renewables and electrification. And speaking of electrification of the transportation sector and your building sector, on top of whatever data center growth or load that increase that you will be allowing, do you expect that the increases in demand that you'll be seeing the next 5 to 10 years can be met entirely by increase in renewable supply and batteries?
Yeah, absolutely, I do. And I think that's a great question. The first point is the fastest thing you can add is renewables. Okay, so solar and batteries go in really quickly, can be dispatched immediately, and now there's a lot of expertise on pairing those things. So we site all of the new power plants coming to California, large scale, and so that right now our siting queue is about 20 gigs in that queue. It's 98% solar and storage. That's what's coming on. There is some wind being built as well, but solar and storage is just winning on price, and we can scale that. Now, we're blessed in California to also have a lot of open space and lands in the desert and so on. So it's a little bit different in different states in terms of how much utility scale solar you can accommodate. I've been watching the East Coast offshore wind projects closely, and really gratified to see those back in construction. And I think a number of them are going to be completed in the coming months. I think that's an amazing resource. Those we have a state goal to do 25 gigs of offshore wind, and the scale of that technology is incredible. There's now 50 megawatt turbines, and just one rotation of a turbine, powers in that configuration like 4 houses for a day for one rotation. So it's just the scale we can get to with the technology is really, really exciting. And we are keeping up with the demand because load has been growing. And as I said, we haven't had a flex alert in 3 years, and we intend to keep it that way.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Delegate Boyce.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair, and thank you so much for being here. This is so fascinating as we've been really getting a deep dive in energy. In your closing remarks, you talked about lessons learned. I missed the statement you said, did you say sustained orderly development?
Orderly development. And it's really just the philosophy of moving away from short-term, one-year funded projects and trying to do everything over a long term, from now to 2045, locking in the goals and providing stability. And the main reason that's been successful, it's unlocked a lot of investment. And I think, just to speak bluntly, I think one of the things that I watch with this, tariff policy, which I consider to be crazy in our country right now, that kind of volatility does not allow for stable investment, right? And so when you provide certainty, what happens is companies are okay making big R&D investments, big new planning big long-term projects, and really leaning in. And that's the main learning we've had.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay, I do not see any. Oh, sorry, Delegate Jacobs, last question.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So, David, let me, you talked about battery storage quite a bit, and you say the next generation, the new generation is much safer than the first generation. And so how does California, is there special training in the fire departments for that battery storage? You did mention there were fires in the first generation. You're switching over, it's safer. So tell me about the training and tell me who pays for it, and about the equipment that fire companies need, that special equipment for those fires.
No, thank you, Representative. That's a great question. I'm a former firefighter myself. I care a lot about this. We have a statewide battery safety task force with CAL FIRE, which is our statewide fire agency, and we have done a deep dive on this. One of the things we've done also is, for example, we have a commitment when we do these large-scale battery projects. We require community benefits agreements. So that big Darden, battery storage project I was mentioning, we did 9 community benefits agreements supporting a whole bunch of things, local schools and communities, but also the fire department. So we did a big upgrade, a big grant for them to upgrade and have a dedicated fleet available. And so there's that, and then there's a lot of training. I think the codes are the most important thing here, which is really an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure, right? And that is what I feel really good about, because they're very, very strict. And I think the learning curve, Mr. Representative, it's very analogous to me with what happened with cell phone fires. Like there were the Galaxy Samsung, right, caught on fire, and that was an issue. And they've really worked through that. We all still feel comfortable, having a phone on our person, right? And the same thing, with the early Chevy Bolt fire, and there was a learning curve, and that's gotten figured out. So I think the utility scale battery industry has gone through the same learning curve. And I would say that is one advantage for states that are kind of looking at it now, is what you're getting that's coming in the market. I feel very good about from a safety perspective.
Thank you for your answer.
Okay, thank you again for joining us. We really appreciate it.
If I could just close with one other comment I forgot to mention, which is, as we do this clean energy build out, really lifting up the communities that have suffered the most from high levels of pollution has been really important. I just want to stress that we're doing about 70% of our R&D investments in clean energy we do 150 million a year of that, in low-income and disadvantaged communities. About half of our EV charging infrastructure is in those communities as well. The communities that live near freeways and have higher levels of air pollution. That's been a really important focus, and we're, continued to believe that's the right approach. So anyway, it's been a pleasure. Thank you for having me. Look forward to working with you all.
Thank you again. Really appreciate your time. We will turn to subcommittee announcements. Chair Fraser-Hidalgo.
Subcommittee is at 3 o'clock via Zoom.
Other subcommittees? Chair Ziegler.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to say that AAA will have a very important fact-finding mission at Galway Bay on Tuesday at 11:30. We're going to taste some agriculture and aquaculture. Thank you.
Starting early. Delegate Boyce, Chair Boyce.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair. AAA, I don't know if that's the car or the. So tomorrow morning at 10, between 10 and 10:45, the Natural Resources and Open Spaces Subcommittee will just have a breakfast meet and greet. I know some folks can't be there at 10, but if you can stop by any time in between, especially for a couple of new members to get acclimated, to remember the rules, but most importantly, as I know, get ready to work. Thanks so much.
Chair Lewis.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The Transportation Subcommittee will have our organizational meeting. There may be pizza and there may be things for you, but to incentivize your attention, we're going to go over rules, norms, et cetera, really quickly at 3:45 in the room 406. 3:45, room 406. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. I think we are at the end of our energy briefing schedule. So I know it was a lot of material, a lot of content. Just want to thank everybody for your engagement. I think at this point, every member of the committee asked at least one question. So really appreciate it and enjoy the rest of your day.